It's another episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. We start doing player grades from the season as we take a player from the Arizona Coyotes and talk about their season, give them an extensive review, tell them how we think. And that's the first one on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
Your Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leano. That's Carl Pavlik right beside me. On this episode of Locked On Coyotes, I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen every day. We are available everywhere you get your podcast with absolutely zero paywall. Free all the time, every day. Let's get into what we're talking about in today's episode. We are doing player reviews, and we're going to do break down key players and, starting with pending free agents for the Arizona Coyotes, because there's a lot of them, and talk about, what we liked, what we didn't like, and because it's a rebuilding team, talk about this player's future. Let's get right into it. The first player we are talking about on this review series, Anton Stralman, pending free agent, acquired over the last offseason from the Florida Panthers. Carl, you have the details on what that trade was, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was a very classic trade. We've seen a lot of the Bill Armstrong make. Article published July 26, 2021, if you want to know exactly what happened or when. Anton Stralman was traded to the Arizona Coyotes by the Florida Panthers for a 7th-round pick at the 2023 NHL Draft. The Coyotes also received defenseman Vladislav Kolyachonok and a 2nd-round pick in the 2024 NHL Draft. This was a player who there was a lot of rumors that he was going to be traded like 1-to-1 for Kyle Capobianco, and that's why the Coyotes need to protect Capobianco at the expansion draft. But they ended up like just getting him and a bunch of other things. I don't think anyone really expected him to have as good a season as he had.
No, because it was supposed to be another like cap dump, and he just wasn't, like, his numbers were not producing as he used to. I'm looking at his stats. His highest in the last few years was 19 points, and that's in 69 games. But yeah, he hasn't
very
been
nice.
yeah, I know, right? But yeah, he hasn't been great. And again, he's getting on the older side. He's 35, so once a lot of people talk about in the NHL, once you reach the age of 35, you're practically a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why they had the 35 plus contract clause on those NHL contracts, but.
Yeah. I mean, he signed a 3-year, $5.5 million deal with the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers needed some cap space, and he was not really living up to what that kind of deal warrants. And I mean, there's no real it's not a surprise that he was traded. To me, the surprise was what he did this year, because especially at towards the end, he was one of the most stable Coyotes defensemen.
Yeah.
He was a shutdown guy who was also providing offense, and his shot was I think a very big surprise for a lot of people, myself included.
Oh yeah, no, he made things pretty fun. Like getting a ripper from the point. You're just like, holy crap, dude. Where did that come from?
Yeah, especially for a player who was not didn't really have that reputation as, the player you'd be expecting offense from. And he didn't provide a lot. He wasn't the Coyotes' number one offensive defenseman. That's, of course, Shane Gostisbehere. But he, he played above expectations, and he definitely added quite a bit. He very much lived up to the hey, the Coyotes have opportunity, and if you want to score goals, Anton Stralman, you could score goals.
And again, like, offensive defenseman, a lot of people talk about, again, your offensive stats. And yeah, we can talk about that, right? 8 goals, his highest in the last 7 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
23 points, also his highest in like the last 7 years. But also on the defensive side, 100 blocks, 99 hits, 32 takeaways. Like, he's like, a solid defenseman. He did his job.
Yeah. And he was definitely one of the older defensemen on the
Mm-hmm.
team. Yeah, I'm thinking he'd be the oldest. Because Gostisbehere's still in his 20s, I believe.
Yep.
Everyone else was in the Roadrunners to start the season. So, yeah. I mean, he had to be like the guy in the locker room for defensemen. And I think he really did assume that leadership role. We saw him for I believe the final ceremonial puck drop at Gila River Arena was Anton Stralman, if I recall. And
Yeah.
that's quite an honor.
I mean that is, I'm like, that's like to be remembered in that moment, and you have all the ceremonies that are happening in that day, and to be that guy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's saying a lot.
Especially for a player who was, acquired during the off season as a cap dump who needed a pick to be included. That is quite the journey that he has had. I don't think we could say enough good things about Anton Stralman. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
He has been really fun to watch, and I think that's, um, you know, yeah, his performance has definitely been one of the highlights for the Coyotes this year. Because let's be real, I mean, they're not a lot, because as we talked about, and many times there were a lot of frustrating things, and we talked about that in our episode earlier this week, in 3 things that went wrong, and in confidence and a bunch of other things, and yeah, it made things worse, but Strawman was definitely one of those highlights.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're gonna get more though on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. Though we're gonna talk about things that we might have wanted to see more from him, and plus more talk about grades and his future in the National Hockey League in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you guys about our next partner, a partner that has a product I use literally every day, known as AG1 from Athletic Greens. I use it because, again, they it, I have a problem with with staying healthy every day and getting all the vitamins I need. And AG1 is the perfect way to get that all together and get it all together in one item. It's essentially just one scoop of this powder that has 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, adjuvants, you name it, all to start your day. So you don't even need to take multiple different things. You can just take one thing to get your day started. You can mix it with anything. I personally like to mix it with orange juice because it makes it taste a little bit better. Maybe try it with other things. With water, you can definitely do it with water, with apple juice in your smoothie. However you want to do it, it definitely works out that way. And it all costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. So I want you guys to try it right now. If you go right now, you can claim your health. We claim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you 1 free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs for your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. And again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So let's continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We are doing player reviews. We are talking Anton Stralman today. We talked about what we liked from him and the highlight that he brought to the Arizona Coyotes. But now, Carl, let's go ahead and talk about things we wish we saw more from him. And I'll be honest, I think the list on this guy is pretty short. There's not much we
Yeah.
could say.
Yeah. I mean, he is definitely not a perfect player. I don't think either of us are going to say that. And the Coyotes in general, we're not a good team. So there's definitely areas of improvement. But we said a lot of good things about Strålman. Uh, Spoiler, I think we're both going to rate him pretty highly in the next section. But you know, we don't need to sugarcoat it. He's an adult. We can have just a frank discussion of some of the areas that he should do better in, or we would like to see more improvement in.
Absolutely. And I'll start things off. I gave you the stats earlier about his defensive stats, and that's great. But, you're a veteran defenseman posting a -16. And I know you're gonna put me on plus minus again.
Yes.
I'm just nitpicking here. I'm just nitpicking here, try to cherry pick little things.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. Earlier this week, we talked about one of the things that really happened with the Coyotes is collapses,
Yep.
and part of that was confidence. They took too many penalties. Their special teams weren't great. Like there was a lot of reasons why that happened, but you would kind of hope that a shutdown defenseman would shut things down in a way that maybe we have less of
Yeah.
those. Like,
Not
especially
and
oh,
not only
I'm
that, is
sorry, go ahead.
at his age too, right?
Yeah.
He's a veteran shutdown defenseman.
He knows what his role is, and, I think that it's a big ask to have, and I'm not gonna say that it was all on him, but that is a area where the Coyotes struggled. They would give up a goal, and then they would pretty soon after give up another one. And, you know, you kinda want just like Strawman at wearing an A on his chest to like take over and be like, hey, this is what we're gonna do to shut this down.
And especially to be a leader, like you want him you'd hope that he'd be a leader for the Roadrunners defenseman coming in, right?
Yeah.
Because that's huge. Because again, we have like how many Roadrunners came in? Cam Deneen, Dyson Mayo, uh,
Kolyachonok,
Koyachana, yes. I know
JJ
there's
Mosier.
yeah, Mosier. Wow, so more than half of what the 8 Roadrunners that made debuts were defensemen.
Yeah.
Um,
As soon as Ilya Labushkin was traded, and Timmins was hurt, like it was all just AHL like defensemen pretty much,
yeah,
except for Gus Despair, Chikrin when he wasn't hurt, and
and
Anton
Stralman.
Stralman. Yeah, and that is again a really major ask for him in a role that I'm not sure that he necessarily was expecting, but yeah, he we would like to see a little bit more in that kind of area, like the more defensive aspect, and hopefully like doing that. But that's pretty nitpicky, and it's not all on him.
It's no. Again, yeah, it's not. And that's just us. Again, it just being nitpicky and us, talking ideal scenarios, right?
Yeah,
And obviously, in a rebuild year, ideal scenarios are never gonna happen.
yeah.
It's just a matter of the fact that it's just something's gonna go wrong. And in the case for the Coyotes, it was the fact that they lost 80% of their defense core.
It's all the injuries. That was just one of the things. Like I do kind of wonder what the situation would be if he was, just part of a more experienced group of Coyotes defensemen. I still think the Coyotes would have lost if they, had Timmins and Chikrin for their full years. But I think it would have taken a little bit more pressure off. I think we would have maybe seen a little bit more from Strowman because I thought he played great. I think he still has more to give.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, that's I mean, obviously they'll play into what we're going to say and talk about in a little bit, but you know, I think what makes it hard for us to judge that is, again, like kind of what you mentioned, because there was a lot of the unknowns of what a certain player, maybe if they got injured or not, could have also done, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned Connor Timmins. He got injured in like the first month of the season. Like,
I mean, may have been first like 2 weeks. I want to say
yeah.
it was early. Um,
I mean, he just came off of injury. I think we should have expected that too, but
his knee got crunched though. Like it was a very different type of injury.
very
Like he had
fair.
been dealing with concussion issues, and then I forget what team. I think it was Anaheim. Like just a player like freak accident fell on his knee.
Yeah.
Brutal. Like I can't believe we saw 3 major lower body injuries like just wipe out players. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, if you're talking about an Arizona Coyotes team that just got so unlucky.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to put out a stat correction because I did say last week that the Coyotes. I think you did correct me that the Coyotes, when I said that they were the team with the most games lost to injury, and I had like
Yeah.
500 something. I was wrong. 500 something is still second, but second by a long shot. But the most was Montreal, over 800 games lost to injury.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so just need to put that one out there.
And since we're talking about Strålman, a defenseman, I do think that we should also point out that the assistant coach responsible for defensemen uh,
It's gone.
did not have his deal renewed. So
Yeah,
that is also something where we're like, yeah, there's issues with Strawman's game, areas that I think he could have done better. But hey, maybe the system was also not great. He still exceeded a lot of expectations, but we'll be talking about that.
we will be talking about that in just a moment because we're going to talk about give an overall assessment on Anton Stralman's time, his year of the Arizona Coyotes, and then also talk about his future in the NHL in just a moment. But first, a quick word from Carl.
So I have a message from our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball, and this weekend's run to the Roses at the Kentucky Derby. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts.
All right, so now let's get on to continuing our talk conversation on player reviews as we discuss Anton Stralman, our first player review of the off season. And again, as a pending unrestricted free agent, there's a lot to get to. But first, let us go into a letter grade for Anton Stralman's time with the Arizona Coyotes in this past year. Carl, I'm gonna let you take it off.
So I am gonna go an A minus. I thought Strawman was one of the best players. I think there's definitely a recency bias with this. I think he played extremely well in the stretch, which is just something that I've appreciated for the Coyotes in general. Like playing to the very end, I think that shows a level of drive that I think the team needs more of. Um, there's a reason I didn't really have too many criticisms of his game. There's a reason we talked a lot about the good aspects of it. I don't think he was the best, defenseman on the Coyotes or the best player, so I'm not going to give him the top rated grades, but A minus I think is a good spot for him. What about you?
I was gonna be roughly around that area. I was gonna say a borderline B plus A minus. And the
Okay.
only reason why the couple things are taken is, again, the whole leadership thing and stuff like that. You kind of wish you'd saw more of, but again, that's getting a little hypothetical. So it's hard to go that way, and that's why I'm saying borderline, because it's kind of like on that curve, right? You're trying to say, all right, I kind of had to understand where the Coyotes are coming from.
Yeah.
But he had a great year overall, and again, I am also taking into account how he played down the stretch, because I think that is an extremely important part of the National Hockey League season. How well you can play down the stretch, because teams have stumbled at the end, and obviously, it's a different conversation when you're talking about playoff teams. But there have been playoff teams who have stumbled and barely inch in, and they end up collapsing in the playoffs, and it's been showing. But and this is again different situation because the Coyotes are a rebuilding team, and we knew they were going to finish close to last, but it still counts, right? Because
Yeah,
it's a just the idea of finishing strong.
absolutely. I think if the Coyotes were competing for a playoff spot, like you would want to have a player like Anton Stralman, like digging deep in the final like minutes of every game, starting comebacks, just kind of like being that kind of presence. I think that's a clutch moment. I think people are going to remember it. When contracts start to get signed.
Absolutely. So what we're gonna do as we continue this is, first of all, let's go ahead and say, like I say, borderline B plus, A minus, and you say A minus. We both
Yeah.
think of Anton Stralman very highly, and that's going to put us into the next thing: is how do we think about this guy's future? He's 35 years old, and he's a pending unrestricted free agent. Before we get into the full-on conversation about this, Carl, I want to share a tweet. I talked about this earlier this week, and I kind of mentioned it, and I said I quote tweeted it. But I want to share with you the tweet, so those who are watching on YouTube can actually read the tweet themselves. A tweet put out by Jose Romero. I'm going to put it up right now, talking about Coyotes defenseman Anton Stralman. So the tweet reads, Coyotes D. Anton Stralman, whose steadying presence and 23 points of production might have earned him another contract for next season, said he's open to a return to Arizona. I came here wanting to show that I am still good enough for this league, and I think I proved that. Carl, you and I have been talking all season long of Arizona Coyotes having something to prove. Anton Stralman is a perfect example of that, and he says it right there. And again, and we're going to that point: is he did he prove what he wanted to prove? I think so.
I believe so, yeah. I think Anton Stralman has absolutely earned another contract. Um, let's be extremely fair. He is an older player, as you mentioned. He's over 35. I think it's probably going to be a 1 year or 2 year deal. If he is open to the Coyotes, I would love for them to put an offer out. I don't really see there being another defenseman who can take that spot. I would honestly like to see them get more defensemen who can maybe like have a couple of years on them and not have the Tucson Roadrunners decor next season.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think he's good for that. I also think he may get taken up by a competitor. Like he had a phenomenal season with the Coyotes. That seems like the kind of thing that you could maybe take to I don't know the Minnesota Wild and be like,
right.
hey, I'm here to apply my services.
There's an unfortunate side to being a rebuilding team and bringing in players like Anton Stralman coming in to prove themselves. And that
Yeah.
is the side of when they do prove themselves, competing teams, potential playoff teams are like, oh, that's right. You can play.
Yeah.
I want to offer you a contract too, especially because we have a pending free agent that we're probably going to let walk anyways. So let's bring you up.
Yeah. I mean, I think he had a really good season with the Coyotes. Has he won a cup before?
Um, I do know.
No. Just
Wait,
missed. Looks like
yeah,
he
he
would just
just
missed it
missed
with.
it because like it was the year before COVID when it was like his last year was that year Tampa got freaking taken out by Columbus.
Yeah, he had 47 games in the 2018-2019 season with the Tampa Lightning. Then signed with the Florida Panthers. Prior to the Lightning, he was with the Rangers, the Blue Jackets, and the Maple Leafs.
He did.
So
I will say he did make it to the Cup final in 2015. So
yeah,
and so I mean, like, of course, getting beat by the Blackhawks that year, but.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder, is he the type of player who would want to go for that, final run? And I wouldn't fault him for that. If he does resign with the Coyotes and the season goes according to plan, he'll hit the 1,000 game mark, which will be awesome
That would be
because he is
awesome.
currently at 930. Um, 63 career points, 230 assists. So yeah, probably the 300 point mark too. Yeah, no, I'm open to it. I don't know if it'll happen. Pending unrestricted free agent, he has a lot of control over his destiny, so it's all up to him.
Yeah, it definitely is all up to him. One thing I will say though is like based off of his attitude, I would really like him to stay at least another year in Arizona.
Absolutely. I do think that we talked about his leadership. We said that we would like a little bit more. I think with another year with the team, he could provide more. Like we didn't say that he was bad. We said that he
Uh,
had room to grow.
yeah,
Um, and I think he could definitely do that with the Coyotes next year. Um, and if he decides that he doesn't want to, that he wants to, you know, compete for a cup, I will,
we won't
gladly
fault him.
say
Yeah,
goodbye and
we
cheer
won't.
for him.
Yeah, we won't fault him for that decision, and that comes to the territory of being a fan of a rebuilding team, right? You
Yeah,
have to just accept the fact that players are going to come and go, and you're again, it's putting a brick in, take it out. It's like, all right, that worked, but maybe this works better.
yeah. I mean, by the time the Coyotes are going to be good, I do not see Strawman playing in the NHL anymore. Uh, he
Yes,
may he may prove us wrong, but as
I
you
mean,
mentioned,
he can't.
35-plus-year-olds don't last very much longer.
Yeah, unless you're like who are the ones left? Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara,
Yeah,
like it's they're very few and far between.
yeah.
Alex Ovechkin's going to be getting another outlier example. He's going to freaking play until he's 40. But
Absolutely. But I mean, yeah, there's a reason why we could name the three big ones because it doesn't happen.
yeah,
It happens. It very rarely happens.
it very rarely happens. And again, look, the games played record only just got passed last year, right? So like,
Yeah. But he's a good player. I think that if he went into the season thinking that he needed something to prove, he absolutely proved it. Like
yep,
he has a perfect assessment of his year. I applaud his realistic, impression of himself. That is very difficult for anyone to have, let alone an athlete.
yeah. One other thing too, and I was saying the reason why like it won't be like the biggest deal in the world if he decides to leave the Coyotes. While I prefer not the Roadrunners defensemen to be on, like some of them have proved their worth already.
Yeah.
I mean, they can do the job. Do I think they should stay in Tucson? Yeah, I mean, it's the way things are, but they proved their worth.
Yeah. It's there's going to be a lot of tough decisions when it comes to the defenseman next year. I do not envy Bill Armstrong.
Oh no, Bill Armstrong has his work cut out for him this
Yep.
offseason. That is for a damn sure. And that'll be a point of conversation later this month when we talk about him on a season in review.
Absolutely. We have plenty to talk about with that too.
Our season in review continues all off season long. We're going to be talking player reviews. We're going to be talking draft profiles, management, and coaching. It's going to be nonstop for the next 2.5, 3 months.
Absolutely. We're gonna have plenty of stuff for you to listen to.
Absolutely. That's one of the somewhat joys of being a host of a show of a team that finished close to last.
Yeah. Teams golfing, we're talking about stuff.
Exactly. Like they might be on vacation, but we don't.
Nope. They tell us we have to keep recording, or they're gonna stop paying us. So we're gonna keep
uh,
recording.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode of Locked On Coyotes. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Carl Pavlik is Carl Pavlik FFH. Interact with us, ask the question you might have, and we can answer them right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. And as a reminder, everyone, you have until tonight to submit your Gila River Arena memories, your favorite memories out there, to lockedoncoyotes@gmail.com or to any of our DMs, and we will share those on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Coyotes as we get to our memory book. What is, once again, your favorite memory of Gila River Arena? That's coming up tomorrow, so be sure to stay tuned on that. Anyways, thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.